Back here with Larry McReynolds and Jamie McMurray. Steve O'Donnell just saying serious condition but non-life-threatening injuries, and obviously asking everyone to respect the privacy of the family at this time. Your initial reaction to what you saw on the racetrack today, Larry, was what? Yeah,
I guess, Shannon, one of the scariest crashes I have seen in a long, long time. You know, we've seen cars get up in the catch fence. We saw Austin Dillon a few years ago in the July race at Daytona. But I guess when that car came down and got hit by Corey LaJoie's number 32 car right in the driver's door, that was very, very scary. But to hear Steve O'Donnell say non-life-threatening injury, that's a huge relief.
Well, first off, that's the news that we wanted to hear. We, like the rest of the world, have been sitting around kind of patiently wanting to hear some news, so thankful to hear that Ryan is going to be okay. And, you know, to Larry's point, when we were watching the end of the race, we clearly had access to some other cameras that maybe weren't on the broadcast, and were able to get different views and be able to rewind it and watch it a lot. And we clearly were scared. I mean, you know, they prepare these cars to have a lot of different impacts. That impact doesn't happen very often, and that's a scary one to have. They are prepared for that, but you just never know. And as you could see that the cage was kind of collapsed, you know, right around where his head is, and then the length of time it took to get him out. Super scary, but we're very thankful that it sounds like he's going to be okay.
You know, when you look at what happened on the racetrack and obviously the end of the race taking place, Jamie, you've been on the racetrack and have had to deal with many of these things as a competitor. How do the other drivers that are in the field, what's the process of trying to go through what you're going through post-race and also trying to figure out what's going on with one of your competitors?
Well, I mean, I've not been in the position of maybe like Ryan Blaney or Corey LaJoie, what they went through tonight. You clearly could see in Ryan's interview the concern, and everyone, as we read across Twitter, everybody praying for Ryan. That's a super scary situation, though, and you know, it's a huge risk getting in a car, and clearly, I mean, you're out there racing and you're racing hard, and it's the end of the Daytona 500. But that's certainly a really tough process for those guys to have to deal with.
Yeah, for you guys.
Yeah, you know, 18 years as a crew chief and a number of years as a crew member, you know, you'd buckle your driver in that race car, and you would feel like you did everything you could to keep him as safe as possible. But we do know it's a risk. And I speak also as a dad that has a son that races. My son has raced at Daytona. He has raced at Talladega. And you certainly do all you can to know that he is as safe as possible, but you do know racing that the risk factor exists.
Yeah, you know, and we've seen flips. I mean, this isn't uncommon, right? We see horrific crashes, and as you guys have just mentioned, the safety on these race cars are such that you guys walk away. And so when we have an accident like this, the impact is so grand, because this is not what we saw play out is not the norm.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think back, actually, same area of the racetrack, Austin Dillon's wreck that we saw years ago, and Austin, like, jumped right out, right? And we knew he was okay. What made this so scary is that car was upside down. We actually initially were looking at, looked like there might have been gas leaking out, and you're like, he's not going to be able to get out of the car. But it's scary for them to flip that over and have to take the time. I mean, it's the scariest moment you can have as a race car driver, for sure.
Obviously, we are continuing to think about Ryan Newman and his family. Steve O'Donnell speaking at Daytona International Speedway. A serious condition is what he mentioned, non-life-threatening, but in a serious condition for Ryan Newman. So obviously, as everybody else continues to follow this story at home, we will continue to update you as well. But we're just reflecting on what we saw happen tonight at the end of the Daytona 500 on that last lap with Ryan Newman and the rest of the competitors. And I think that we ask about these cars going airborne, and in situations like this, Larry, we don't really see them that often. Where they're this type of wreck, and it just is one of those things that just played out.
No, I mean, I have, especially over the last 2 decades, my years with Fox, I have watched and talked to NASCAR, and it's been amazing how hard they have worked. And they are working and continue to work to be proactive, not reactive. I think for so many years in NASCAR, especially my years as a crew chief, we would react to a situation. They have tried hard to stay proactive, to stay out in front of these things. But to Jamie's point, you know, you can only cover so many bases, and when that car went upside down and came back down and got hit right in the driver's door, I promise you, NASCAR will take that car, they will look at footage, and they will be studying it for a long time, trying to think about what could we do to prevent this from happening again.
What is a sense of security that you guys have when you get into those race cars, Jamie? I mean, you were in the Daytona 500 1 year ago.
Yeah, I mean, safety's come so far, especially throughout my career, probably had the biggest change. But, you know, Larry said something about NASCAR being proactive. I think back to when Brad Keselowski had that wreck at Atlanta, and he hit, like, on the roof into the fence. And it's just really hard to prepare, you know, your seat belts, the way the seat is mounted in the car. You know, things happen that you can't prepare for. But NASCAR has these sled tests where they can put the car at different angles and drop it from a certain height and kind of reenact what's happening there and make changes. And so, you know, as we went to carbon fiber seats, as we went to five-point belts, then 6, then 7, I mean, everything, the collapsible steering columns, things just kept evolving. And so it's definitely given, when we heard guys say it all weekend, and you think back to the Clash, like someone's like, yeah, you know, yeah, everybody feels so safe in the car. And you do, but you just don't have wrecks that you know, that the top of the cage or the driver's side door gets hit like this when it's in the air. When you're involved in one of those wrecks, you're prepared for the first impact. You kind of can see that coming and you know it's going to happen. When you start, I've only flipped once. When you start flipping, things get quiet and you immediately are like, I hope I don't get hit again, because you can't see where it's coming from. And the only way I can explain it is it's like getting punched in the face with your eyes closed. You don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, I even think about what I saw tonight, and we saw it twice during speed weeks where a race truck or race car ended up upside down. I just look at even the method in the system that NASCAR has in place of getting those, as we saw with Ty Majeski's truck Friday night and Ryan Newman's car tonight, getting those cars back up on their wheels upright where the medical workers can do their work and take care of the driver that's inside. We've just come so far in so many ways with safety.
And of course, those medical workers did get out to Ryan Newman after what we saw take place on the last lap of the Daytona 500 earlier this evening down at Daytona. Last lap, Ryan Newman, as they're coming to the checkered flag, you see that this is transpiring with the Ryan Blaney behind him.
Well, yeah, and obviously the checkered flag is waving, and you can see right there the car upside down, and Corey LaJoie was back there running on the high side, and there just was nowhere for Corey LaJoie to go. And to Jamie's point, we were a little bit afraid right there when you saw that flash fire that there was some fuel, but the fuel cells do a tremendous job of containing the fuel. And, you know, Ryan Newman right here is doing everything he can to block Ryan Blaney, and it just didn't work out.
Jamie, you've experienced one of these wrecks before, going airborne and flipping over, and even just tell us what inside the race car you've experienced in this situation.
Well, here's the deal. He's leading the Daytona 500. You know there's 30 cars behind you, so when you flip, you hit the wall. At this point right here, you're just hoping no one else hits you. And unfortunately, look, Corey LaJoie's defense, that happens so fast, and you don't know where the car's going. It's ricocheting, you know, off the outside wall, right in front of you, and you can't go anywhere. There's just nothing you can do. You're along for the ride. And still at this point, he's just hoping that no one else is going to hit him.
So if you're just joining us this evening, we are updating you on the Ryan Newman situation. On the last lap of the Daytona 500, Ryan Newman involved in a multi-car wreck. Steve O'Donnell spoke a few moments ago at Daytona. This is what he had to say.
Thanks, Tom. I wanted to provide everybody an update on Ryan Newman. He's been transported to Halifax Medical Center, undergoing further treatment and evaluation. We've been in continual dialogue with the race team and Ryan's family, and on behalf of Roush Racing, they've asked us to read a statement to give you an update, and the statement reads as follows. Ryan Newman is being treated at Halifax Medical Center. He's in serious condition, but doctors have indicated his injuries are non-life-threatening. We appreciate your thoughts and prayers and ask that you respect the privacy of Ryan and his family during this time. We appreciate your patience and cooperation, and will provide more information as it becomes available. That's the end of the statement. And then certainly on our behalf, we're going to continue to work with the race team and Ryan's family to support them in any way we can. We'd ask that you respect their privacy, and going forward, we'll provide updates as we can, but at this time, our thoughts are with Ryan and his family. Thank you.
Certainly all of us thinking about Ryan and his family and the outpouring of support on social media, throughout the garage, people just reaching out, trying to find out if there are any updates on Ryan. And we always say it, Larry and Jamie, that this sport, in terms of the family atmosphere, and certainly we have kind of felt that so much this evening as we're all waiting to find out news on Ryan Newman.
You know, Shannon, we're quite an amazing sport. You know, these guys and these teams are out there fighting each other, racing each other, tooth and nail, ill at each other, mad at each other sometimes, but I can promise you there is not another sporting community on the face of the earth that comes together when someone gets injured or hurt. I've seen it for many, many years, many, many times.
I mean, it's so true. I came into the sport at the same time as Ryan, and we had kids around the same time, so I've probably spent as much time with him at the playground as I have away from the racetrack. You know, it is a big family, and it's interesting that you can be that close to someone and then, you know, have such a fierce competitor on the track in the same weekend. Yeah,
and of course, it was such a scary moment on that last lap of the Daytona 500. We'll take a look at it one more time for those of you guys just joining us as they're coming to the checkered flag in the biggest race of the season, just a short distance away from winning what could have been his second Daytona 500 victory. And of course, this happens.
Yeah, you can see right there when the car gets upside down and the driver's side is going to flip right around, and that's Corey LaJoie's right there, and just know where to go with that 32 car. But I continue to stress, you don't blame Ryan Newman, you don't blame Ryan Blaney, you don't blame Corey LaJoie.
No.
This is drivers seeing a checkered flag wave for what we deem as the biggest race of the year.
Well, yeah, I mean, just when I look at that, all I can think of is that Ryan Newman is within 100 yards of winning the Daytona 500, right? He's trying to block Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney's trying to win it. And each time I look at that, I kind of look at something different. Corey LaJoie was so close. I guarantee you he was on the brakes as hard as he could to not get into Ryan. But there's nothing you can do. When you're going 200 miles an hour, cars don't slow down. You can't maneuver around like you'd like to.
But you have been involved in wrecks where you've caused wrecks, and certainly digesting that when it's on a level of this magnitude, it's part of human nature, Jamie.
I mean, I can't imagine the wave of emotions that whether it's Ryan Blaney or Corey LaJoie, kind of what they've went through in the last couple of hours. And I know we've said it 3 times, but I think it's really important that we stress that it's no one's fault here. No. It's just part of our sport, and everybody knew when they climbed in their car at the start of the race that there's a chance. And you know, yeah, I mean, there's just nothing we can do about it.
I mean, you talk about it, the just being there, part of a pit crew. What's the crew members going through? What is his crew chief going through? And all of those guys on pit road that put this car together and get him on the racetrack.
Yeah, I guess I can relate, Shannon, because, you know, 1994 at Michigan in practice, you know, Ernie Irvan was injured severely. And you're kind of in a state of shock because, you know, when you think about a driver and his crew, they spend more time with each other than they do their families. That is a member of their family, and you're kind of in a state of shock to some degree, you know, and of course then you forget about the racing, you forget about him racing next week. All you worry about and you care about is him and his family. That's all that matters. The racing is secondary from there.
For more great NASCAR on Fox content, subscribe to our channel. It's somewhere right around here.